It's time for breaking bread with Papa. Hey, don't you know? Hey, it's our goal. Hey, it's time for breaking bread with Papa. Hey, don't you know? Hey, it's also a show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Breaking Bread with Tom Papa. I'm Tom Papa. It's so nice to be with you. It really is. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. If you are in the mood to make beautiful comments, only compliments, make those as well on the YouTube. Wherever you're listening to your podcast, if you can give us a nice ranking, as many stars as they let you give, you should totally do that. It helps to spread the word for this podcast, which is really my goal, is to keep spreading the word and telling these great stories and sharing with everybody. And the more that you guys participate, the better. And thank you for the comments and the likes and stuff so far. I get a lot of comments about people cooking while they're listening to this podcast, and that makes me very happy, probably more than any other activity. Today we have a great one with Greg Fitzsimmons. Such a great guy, such a funny comedian. I knew Greg in New York when I very first started comedy. He was a little ahead of me, and he was just so cutting and so funny, and he always seemed like he was in with all the cool comics, and I just wanted to be around him any way that I could. But it's in the early days, it's like going to high school. You don't just walk in and pick out the cool kids and get to hang with them. You literally have to play it cool and prove yourself and maybe fight a bully or two. And after a while, they kind of let you in. And it's no exaggeration to say that when I've gotten to this point in my career and people like Greg, I can truly call a good friend. It's not an exaggeration to say that it is one of the most meaningful parts of a career in comedy. To know that when I'm out and running around, I can call this great mind, this hilarious, thoughtful guy or girl who has just been an inspiration to me in comedy, and that we are now friends, and they'll take my call or let me talk about wherever I am and the gig that I'm on, and that they've been there before. And it's a human contact that is a truly a special thing that I don't take lightly at all. I love Greg Fitzsimmons, and we will break bread with him right now. Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you. I'm so sorry, but every time are we recording the podcast?
Yeah.
But every time I listen to 95.5 in Los Angeles, there's a guy, Greg G something. Do you know who I'm talking about?
You've told me about him.
He's like your corny, smug alter ego. He's like you know how all of us, when we look in the mirror, we have body dysmorphia?
Yeah.
Like, he would be who you would hear yourself sounding like.
Wait, what's he like? Like a little swarmy?
No, it's not. That's the best part, is that he has none of your personality, but his voice, tone, timing, rhythm, he must be from your fucking town, and maybe check Ancestry DNA, because you're the same guy physically.
Physically, just physically.
Just your sound physically and your tone. And I'm remiss, because I was going to record him this week, knowing we were doing this podcast, and I was going to play clips for you, but I'm going to send them to you. If I send them to you, do you promise you'll play them on a future podcast of yours?
Absolutely. I'll bring you back on and do it.
Okay.
Because I have one for you.
Oh.
Because I have on the Peloton, which is the only place I've been exercising during this whole quar. The kids call it the quar.
Right.
During the quar, I have a Peloton bike in the house.
The Pel.
And love the Pel. The only problem with the Pel is that there's a lot of teachers that are partying on the bike.
Really?
And getting in touch with you, and
Yeah.
you're with me, and a little sexual innuendo, and a lot of stuff I'm not into. And there's this one guy named Matt Wilpers who is just a athlete. He's just a white dorky athlete, and he's like the guy that you just played football with in high school.
Right.
And he's just like upbeat, great, awesome, but he sounds like you.
Right.
So
Right.
when he talks about like especially when he breaks out of his coaching and you're in the middle of a 5-minute thing and he just starts talking about bands or something, you're like, I'm listening to Fitzsimmons right now.
Do you want me to start coaching you on the Peloton? I can do it. You can cut off that membership right now. Tom, push it. Push it, baby. You got it in you.
I know you too well.
Yeah.
And I know that you would start off motivating me, and then you would quickly get me to quit the Peloton.
Tom, this isn't doing anything.
Tom, what are you trying to prove?
Stop. Just go make some bread. You spent a lot of money on this bike. You thought it would encourage you. You thought that would put the gun to your head. But let's not. We all know how this is going to end.
I know. You would not be good. I mean, I worked so hard on that thing just to stay the same. Like if I wasn't, I literally hit like a mile a year streak that I've done it every week for a year. And,
no shit.
Yeah.
What do you mean
And
every week? How many times a week?
At least once.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's a big achievement. I should probably, when you think about it, be like 20 pounds lighter. And while I've lost weight during the choir, I definitely am not. The ratio is gone now between how hard I work and how much I lose.
It's all food. It
It's
really
all
is.
food.
I mean, you even talk to great trainers, and they'll tell you, "Look, I don't know what to tell you, man. Just cut out the bread." They always say the same thing: cut out the bread.
I know. And listen, I wanted to sit down with you in my studio and do this, which we'll do when things get a little more righteous.
Yeah.
But just because we're remote doesn't mean that you're not getting bread. I have to go on the road this week, and when I come back, I will be delivering bread to your house.
Really?
Yes, that's what you get for doing the podcast.
You're going to drive to Venice Beach and drop
Yes.
off a loaf of bread at my house.
100%, and it will happen next week.
Do I get to request a certain type of bread? Or is that not done?
You can go ahead. Like what do you mean? Maybe.
I like it, like just an Irish soda bread. That's all.
Eh.
No, that's sourdough. My wife loves sourdough. So if you make,
Okay.
I think that's your standard, right?
That's my standard, but do you want it with you can have it plain, the plain country loaf. You could have the olive loaf. If you like
Ooh,
olives.
that sounds nice.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
Or yeah, those two. Or I could do a rye, but I don't know.
I like rye, but I think the olive sounds nice. That sounds moist.
It is. Yes, it actually lasts you all week long because it is so moist.
Yeah.
When I picture you growing up and eating with your family and stuff, I picture a lot of white. I see potatoes, I see white bread, I see maybe pasta but with no red sauce. I see an Irish plain white affair.
Cauliflower, pork chops, white pork chops.
Yeah, right?
No, it was extremely white. And, I wouldn't even say bread because my mother was such a bad cook. She was I shouldn't say she was a bad cook. Her mother was an alcoholic, and my mom was one of 6. And so the mother just wanted everyone out of the kitchen so she could drink in peace.
Right.
So my mom never learned how to cook anything, literally anything. Then she gets pregnant at 22, moves from her father's house in with my father,
Wow.
who's also an alcoholic, and she has to begin cooking for a son and then another son who comes 12 months later.
Oof.
And so like her her connection to cooking was, I'm being forced to do this thing against my will with no training.
Oh,
And with so she would get like pork chops, take the cellophane off the wrapper,
yeah.
put it in a pan,
Yeah.
turn on the heat, open up some canned vegetables, put it in a pot, turn up the heat,
Yeah.
and serve it. Like, that was it. There were no seasonings. There was no salad. There was no bread. There was no dessert.
Yeah.
Like, that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. That generation, even if there are, of course, there's people that love to cook and whatever, but even the ones that did love to cook, that was a different, like every single meal. You know how people freaked out during this quarantine where they're like, I have to cook every meal?
Yeah.
It was like a big, like, even if you love cooking, you're like, we'll order out 4 times a week.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
we'll make some really kick-ass stuff 3 days a week. They had to feed, and they all had big families. They just had to crank stuff out. 3 meals a day for this family. So it was a lot of prepared stuff that you could just crank out easily and just literally give this family calories.
Yeah, and so bread was definitely there to like supplant whatever else was made, especially if you didn't have a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And the Irish, that's why there's so many different Irish stews, because you just like, on a good week, the stew has a lot of lamb in it or has a lot of beef in it.
Right.
In a bad week, it's got a lot of fucking celery. It's got cabbage.
Yep.
Every country's broke area eats cabbage. Cabbage is the worldwide shit food for poor people.
You're right. You're exactly right.
And it's very gassy.
Doesn't make you feel good.
No.
Doesn't taste great.
No, but it grows easy. It's a fucking stubborn vegetable.
Yeah.
It's the last thing eaten by the locusts or dried out by the famines.
So what would happen during a holiday? What was Christmas like?
It was that times 4 because her siblings were as bad as she was. So we would always go to the Bronx. I was born in the Bronx, and we'd go to my grandfather's house. And my cousins all lived in Long Island and New York City, and so we would all go to the Bronx with my uncle from Long Island, Uncle Paul,
right?
Who he was a great old guy and alcoholic, and he would had a giant styrofoam cooler held together with electric tape, and they would make a turkey in the morning, and then they would put it into the cooler and put it in the back of his Ford LTD, drive it to my grandfather's house, and then stick it in the oven at like 178 degrees, where it would sit from 11 a.m. until 5 p.m. when everybody finally started eating. In the meantime, everybody's just drinking their faces off. And then finally, like, we'd pull this bird out. It had no moisture left in it.
Oh, God.
And just, white mashed potatoes, white cauliflower, white macaroni and cheese.
Yeah.
Yams.
Yeah. And everyone watching all the adults just banging into the furniture and against the walls.
And then we would be just as drunk because we would go down to we would steal something and go down to the basement, and then me and my cousins would all get annihilated. Like starting at the ages of like 11,
Really?
12. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know where we learned it.
Yeah, I know. Well, this is why, and I say this, I've said this to you before, and I say it everywhere I go. Whenever the subject comes up and you come up as a subject, or the cycle of life, the cycle of bad behavior or good behavior comes up, I always talk about why you are one of my heroes, because you are literally the first person I met that consciously decided that I'm going to stop a cycle of abuse and alcoholism in my family, and I'm going to draw the line, and I'm going to be the guy that decides this goes no further in our lineage. And I'm going to switch, and I'm going to raise my kids in a different way, and I'm not going to do what those people, I'm not going to fall into the pattern that everyone did, because it's such, whenever you see people that are hurting, it's usually because they're caught in that pattern that was thrust on them. And you are very unique, very special that you were aware enough to just cap that off and start new.
Yeah, well, thanks, man. I appreciate
It's
that.
inspiring. It really is.
Although, well, yeah, and it took a lot of work, but it felt like, yeah, it felt crazy to continue. You know, the definition of insanity is repeating the same behavior,
Yeah.
expecting different results. But we'll see if my kids don't break the cycle back in the other direction at this point.
Well, that's on them. They might be shitty people, but you're great.
Right. I opened the door for them. I can't make them walk through it. No, it was, and you know, a lot of my cousins have, not a lot. A couple of my cousins have also gotten sober, but most are continuing the family tradition.
Keeping it going. There's something to be said for tradition. I don't want to say.
Yeah, there is. Hey, there's a part of me that would be a little bit bummed if everybody got sober because Christmas is so much fun. You know, Christmas, Easter, like whenever we get together, they are just the greatest collection of people. They all have bigger than life personalities.
Right.
They're all like super caring, funny storytellers. And the night goes on. It just keeps going, you know? And I don't know. I like being a fly on the wall.
That Irish storyteller thing is so real. It's like people that don't even think about show business, don't even think about writing books, can just fire off the best stories in the world from that culture. Yeah. It's just a talent.
Yeah, I really think my Aunt Dolores, who's my mother's sister, is as funny as any comedian. I mean, I'm sure it's the same with you in your personal life. You probably know one or two people that are as funny as Seinfeld or Brian Regan or anybody else. Like my aunt can tell she tells the shit out of a story. She will talk about picking up. There was this older guy in her neighborhood who she used to take out once in a while because he was so old. And she you know, they really walk the walk of Catholicism also. They really do lives of service. They all, you know, one aunt worked with hospice for 30 years. And, you know, they just, my mother is always, she worked volunteered in women's prisons for like 30 years.
Wow. And
just bringing the drugs in.
Wow. Sure.
And so my aunt would bring this guy out to dinner. And she tells this story, and a story that would take anybody else 3 minutes. She can drag 30 minutes out of it and have you laughing the whole time. And she brings him to this restaurant, and then he goes and he shits himself in the restaurant. And it's just, and that's where the story starts.
Right.
And the 30 minutes is her getting him into the car and back home again. So fucking funny.
Oh my God. It's such a it's Jews and the Irish have a great oral history. There's I don't know, I guess you know, a couple centuries of suffering can add to it.
Couple centuries, at least.
Yeah.
I mean, the British occupied Ireland for 1,000 years, and the Jews have been roaming around since 3,000 years ago?
Right. Yeah.
So I think it is that. I think it's partly that because when you're subjugated and wandering, you know, you don't have as much written material.
Yeah.
And so you do have these oral histories. You're telling the family stories.
Yeah.
And as you tell them, they get better, and it becomes a prized thing to be the person around the fire that makes people laugh or keeps them interested. And so I think
when you were that kid, like in that environment, were you at all able to be funny at a young age in that group?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think because my father was in the business, he was in radio,
Right.
and so he was officially the guy at Thanksgiving and Christmas that was kind of leading the charge with funny stories and the ball breaking. Everybody's shitting on everybody the whole time.
Yeah.
And so it was that kind of spirit. And I think that among my cousins, like I was maybe not the funniest, but I was up there even at a young age. And then I can just remember like, we would have these talent shows. We'd have these family reunions. Because this is all on my mother's side, by the way. My father's side was nobody. My father had his brother who died without any kids. And my father, for some reason, had like no cousins. I don't know what happened to the Fitzsimmons side, but like I never met another Fitzsimmons in my life.
Whoa.
Except my uncle,
Wow.
who was a Skid Row Bowery bum, like lived in a welfare motel in the Bowery my whole life.
Whoa.
And that was the end of the Fitzsimmons line. And so my mother's side was the McCarthys, and they would have these get-togethers. And one year we'd go to the Poconos, and one year we'd go to Connecticut, and one year we'd go to the Catskills. And everybody would come from, we had cousins in D.C., and some would even come in from Ireland.
Wow.
And we'd have these big, massive, like 150 person get-togethers. We do it like every 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And there would be a talent show. And so everybody get drunk and have dinner, and then we would have, be like a hotel, and we'd get like a banquet room, and we'd have a talent show. And I started emceeing at a pretty young age. I started introducing everybody else at a pretty young age.
Little suit?
Little red suit, little velour suit. Yeah. I think
was it
you
stepping out, or was it your father asking you to do it?
No, he was telling me to do it. Look, I'm in the family business, Tom. I mean,
yeah.
Thank God there was something to go into. It's like he showed me that like you can do this and actually raise a family.
Yeah, amazing. That's an unusual thing. A lot of comics had to kind of find their own way.
Yeah,
because everybody was straight. Everybody just had a job, or
right.
You didn't have it. It didn't have a clue.
Did you have to convince your parents that this is something you could do?
No, they knew I could do it because I was hosting a talent show, and I was the only one in the show in my family. I would put on the jacket, introduce myself, and then come out as a different character.
Really? Who were the characters?
I had a bunch of different stuff, but I had a good run as Gilda Radner. Any character that Gilda Radner was doing, I was trying to do. And then some Steve Martin stuff. But Gilda Radner, like with Rosanna Dana, that thing, that was probably the peak of my childhood living room performances.
Yeah.
When I would do that stuff.
And did you collect comedy albums? Is that where you got the material?
I did. Yeah, I would run into comedy albums. I wasn't collecting them yet. My mother had like Lily Tomlin. And I saw that's funny you say that, because I saw an album for SNL before I saw SNL. I think at my grandparents' house they had that SNL album.
Right, I remember that.
Yeah, and I saw that, and then got turned onto the show a little bit later because I was still young. But my parents, so they thought I was funny and they thought I could do it, but they were also like, get a degree and get your act together for when this dream fizzles out, you'll be able to sell insurance.
Right. Yeah.
It wasn't that other thing. So then were you throwing jokes in? Do you remember, like, how old were you when you were hosting?
I was probably like, 11 or 12, and I would do Steve Martin routines. I would do George Carlin routines.
Nice.
Bill Cosby. I did the whole dentist bit.
You did?
And I did this really obscure Steve Martin routine, which was on an album that nobody has. He had this one album called, I think it was called The Two Steve Martins.
Yeah.
And it was, one side was just banjo music.
Right. And it's like a flag.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then
the other side was like him doing these very like set pieces. They weren't, I don't even know that there was an audience for a lot of it. Right. Some of it was just like him recording himself. And one of them was this bit that was called What I Believe. And in the background is this music that's very Americana. It's very, swelling, and you see a flag blowing, and he says, "What I believe. I believe in rainbows and fairy tales and Uncle Dennis who waves his penis. And I believe in 9 out of the 10 commandments. And I believe that every American should be allowed in our country, provided they speak our native language, Apache. And it just goes on and on. It's just these one-liners with this music playing behind it.
Yeah.
And
great.
yeah, so I did that. I remember doing that a lot.
And you probably did that without the music.
No, I had the music. I
Oh,
put
you
the
did?
music on. Not that particular music, but I found some corny music. And then it was just a lot of crowd work. It was a lot of, making fun of the relatives, because that's what my dad did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny. That's amazing. Yeah. That's so good, because you're actually doing bits. Like, you're on stage holding a microphone, having like real structure, like stroke structure coming out of your face.
Yeah, I always say I was never the class clown. I was the class comedian. Like,
Yeah.
I wanted to be a comedian from the time I was 9 years old. I remember I was a really bad athlete growing up, and so, but I played every sport. Love sports, still play sports.
Yeah.
Never any good. And so I was on a swim team, and the main thing that held me back was that I didn't float. I was like anorexic. I was just skin and bones, and I'd go in the water and I'd get nervous, and then being nervous in the water makes you sink, and then having no body fat.
Yeah.
And so they put me on this swim team, and there was an awards ceremony, and it was a kind swim team. So everybody got a plaque, no matter how bad you did in the meet, you got a plaque.
Yeah.
So I remember at the time I think I was 11. And I got an award for breaststroke, 4th place in the 9 and under category.
Yeah.
I lost to 3 9-year-olds. And so I get up there, and they go to hand me the plaque, and Mr. D was the swim coach. And I took the plaque, and then I took the microphone out of his hand, and I started thanking everybody. I thanked Jimmy Carter, because he was the president at the time. And I mentioned Bruce Jenner. I remember I did like a whole like fake speech.
Yeah.
And I killed.
That's so great.
I think that's the first time I did stand up into a microphone.
That's amazing. God. I didn't tell like a joke like until I was like in college, and I was at a wedding for my cousin, and I did a Larry Miller joke. Like the rehearsal dinner, you have the rehearsal dinner the night before, and everybody goes around and gives a little speech about the bride and groom, and it came to me, and I had this joke locked and loaded, and it was like, my cousin's a really attractive guy, and I said, Jimmy's getting married. It's kind of surprising, because he attracts women like cheap metal to a magnet. Which is a Larry Miller line.
That's good.
And I was so I couldn't go to sleep that night, because I had the line in my head all day.
Yeah.
And then popped it out, and it killed.
Yeah.
And I saw the power of what a joke was, like a really premeditated joke.
Right.
Holy cow, that was a different thing than, like you're saying, like just running around being the class clown, and which I was, just kind of making people laugh with fart jokes and being loud.
Right. I think that power, because everybody experiences it, but some of us gravitate to it. Like, everybody gets a laugh at some point, and most people get a big laugh at some point, but the feeling of being the center of attention isn't appealing to them, or they don't get the same connection to the joy of the laugh that other people do. But if you are susceptible to it and comfortable with being the center of attention, your life kind of changes.
Yeah, 100% at a very early age.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just puts you on this path, and you're like, well, I'm going to live here for sure.
Yeah.
And
I could see it with like my cousins. I'd play sports with my cousins, and they all played lacrosse.
Yeah.
And I remember like I'd play for half an hour, and I was like, I was fun. That's great. Now let's go fuck around. Let's go. And they were like, no, we're going to play for 8 more hours. Like, this is what we love. You know how you got that big laugh? Like, when I get a goal, like, that's the feeling I get when you get a laugh.
Right.
And so there's those kids. We all knew those kids growing up that were just, they played every fucking sport. They call it, like in hockey, you call them rink rats. They're the kids that won't leave the rink.
Yeah. Were you able to use your comedy power for girls?
Yeah. Again, like sports, I wasn't very good at it, but I played all the time. And I think I really like, I think I was funnier when I was around girls that were like my level.
Uh-huh.
Like I wasn't able to make really hot girls laugh and break down the barrier.
Uh-huh.
But girls that were like in my league, I enjoyed having fun with them and laughing with them, and I think that helped my cause a lot.
Right.
Yeah, but there's some guys that'll just walk up to Dennis Gubbins. You know Dennis Gubbins.
No.
It's like he's just a guy who's a comedian, but he'll walk up to the most beautiful girl at the party and make her laugh.
Right.
And he'll hook up. Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't my thing either.
No.
Yeah. But I was, yeah. Do you think that was intimidation, or do you think it was, you just knew that they weren't going to be as funny back?
I think that's a part of it.
Yeah, right?
I think I didn't want to be with somebody I was performing for.
Yeah.
I wanted to be with a girl that had a few pounds on her, that knew how to chuckle.
and could throw back.
Yeah.
Could throw jokes back at you.
Yeah. A girl you could make fun of for being fat. She makes fun of me for being skinny. And then we go finger each other in the parking lot behind the bar. Like a lot of the girls that I had sex with were actually just like drinking buddies. They were good friends that at the end of the night you hooked up with,
Right, because you're both drunk and didn't work out with everybody else.
Yeah, right.
Who was the first girl you slept with?
First girl I slept with was, I won't say her name, but we were definitely drinking buddies. And my friend Pete, Sneaky Pete, he was my best friend. And we had a bet. We'd been friends since we were little. And so once we hit puberty, we made this bet that whoever loses his virginity first gets $20 from the other guy.
How old is this? Are you betting?
Probably 14 when we make the bet.
Uh-huh.
And so 14 goes by, nobody's collecting money. 15 goes by, nobody's collecting. And then all of a sudden, I turned 16, and he tells me I just slept with Karen. And I was like, Karen? Everybody slept with Karen. That's going to be your first? Karen?
Yeah.
And so we had made a clause in the contract 6 months earlier that the other guy could cancel the bet out by having sex within 1 month of when the first guy had sex. So now I had my marching orders. Now I had to go out, and he had cheapened himself. Yeah. And so I go out, and I'm sitting on the corner with my buddy Johnny Trouble. We're sitting on the benches, which is where you sat when you were a teenager, and you'd hope that somebody would drive by who had a car that would pick you up. Because you had money for beer, or you had ID, or there was an exchange,
a barter system.
Yeah. So this girl pulls up, and her name was Mary Blood. I'll say her real name because it's just perfect.
Yeah, I love these names: Sneaky Pete,
Johnny Trouble, Mary Blood, and she's got a 76 Firebird.
Ooh.
It's like a badass car.
Yeah,
sky blue. And me and Johnny Trouble get into the car, and with Mary Blood is Karen, the one who Sneaky Pete lost his virginity to. So now we go off and we buy some rum, and we go to the power lines, which is, if you grow up in the suburbs, you know that if you find the power lines, there's always going to be a track underneath them. There's going to be a muddy road so they can service the power lines.
Yeah.
So we go to the power lines and we pull off under there, and there's a light rain. And we're drunk on rum. And so we get out of the car, and Johnny Trouble and Mary Blood start having sex on the trunk of her car. And now me and Karen go to the hood of the car and pull her pants down. I pull my pants down around my ankles. I'm slipping in the mud because we're on a slight uphill and it's muddy out.
Feet on the
And-
ground.
Feet on the ground, pants around the ankles, and I had sex with Karen. It was like a bad Bruce Springsteen song. And then I told Sneaky Pete the next day. I was like, "Bets off. I had sex." And I was like, and he was like, "Who'd you have sex with?" And I go, "Oh, this girl Janine. She's like from the next town over." Like I didn't have the heart to tell him that I lost my virginity to the woman that he lost the virginity to. And the bet was canceled, and now Pete's gay. Sneaky Pete's gay.
Sneaky Pete's gay.
Yeah.
What's the connection?
I don't know that there was. It's just this kind of a weird ending to the story.
He didn't question the girl from out of town story, the oldest lie in the book.
Didn't question it.
Wow, he was a good friend. Sneaky Pete trusted you.
Sneaky Pete. Well, and I trusted that he wasn't gay. I mean, all the years that we had sleepovers and skinny dip together and all that, there was a lot of trust going my direction too.
Is this where he got the name Sneaky?
No, he never hit on me. It's so weird when I look back on that. We traveled around Europe together for like 6 months, backpacked around after high school.
Right.
Slept in fucking ditches together, and
Yeah.
so weird.
You weren't his type.
Wasn't my type. I had 3 of my closest friends. Sneaky Pete came out later. Kevin Meaney, who was one of my best friends in the world,
Right.
came out years after I knew him.
Right.
And then there's another comedian that I'm friends with that you know who's gay, who came out, sort of came out years after I knew him, many years after I knew him.
Right.
And I just think I have no gaydar whatsoever.
Yeah. Okay. Meanie, when you were that close with Meanie, no.
I knew Meanie since I was a little kid because he was
Yeah.
my dad belonged to a golf course in White Plains, and Kevin was a waiter. And so when I was a little kid at the pool, I'd be like, "Kevin, get me a Coke." And he'd be like, "This fucking Fitzsimmons kid." And so and then I got to know him when I got older, when he was a comedian, and then he became like my mentor, and then we became like super close friends. And
God, was he great. God, was he funny. Oh my God, just so funny. But he was one of those guys that when he came out, like you didn't think he was gay. Like it wasn't like, oh yeah, of course he was. But then the more you just sat and thought about his act, you were like, what were we, stupid?
Right.
The
Singing voice
up there, the voices, and
January. And also he went to culinary school. He was on Broadway and drag. Like all these things were out there.
But also, in our defense, married. Right? So it was like, there's a lot of guys that are somewhat effeminate in comedy. That are straight. So it wasn't that crazy. And the other one was another comedian. I'm not going to probe, but I think from New York, right? In the New York days, right?
Yeah.
No real gaydar. But it's hard to have gaydar. Because then there's other guys who, or it's like kind of the opposite stereotype. And when they come out, you're like, whoa, he's more masculine than I am.
Right.
It's like it's all the old tropes is why you're trying to is how you're trying to figure it out. And you're like, no. Right. I remember there was a gay waiter at the Comedy Cellar, and this was like 98. And I made some comment. He was out, and I made some dumb comment to him. We were talking about this and that, all just joking around. And I said something about being more manly, like, something like, oh yeah, like if Teddy was more manly. And he just like looked me dead in the eye and was like, I'm more man than you'll ever be. And I was like, oh yeah, point taken. Like my New Jersey suburb way of thinking about gay guys is they're girly. No.
Right.
And it was, but you were just, we grew up in a time when it was just, whatever you saw in a movie was like your relation to understanding any culture.
Right. Well, I I wouldn't say beaten up, but I think technically he won the fight against the gay guy. And this guy was gay in 8th grade.
Uh-huh.
And we weren't fighting because he was gay. We were fighting about something else.
Uh-huh.
But he grabbed me by my bangs, and he fucking whipped me around. I have to this day. I don't know. Can you see the scar?
Not really.
There's a scar right here from that when I did have hair.
Yeah.
There was a piece of hair missing from a fight in 8th grade.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that made me think about how tough gay guys can be.
Good. Yeah. Oh,
Well, he was like a tough black kid, and he was from the projects. Like in the town I grew up in, there was projects, and there was
Right.
like a lot of cousins.
right.
If you fucked with one guy, you were fucking with like a dozen guys.
Right.
And this guy had a lot of cousins, and so it was kind of stupid that I was fighting him in the first place.
Yeah.
But then I realized, oh no, Keith can actually kick my ass too.
Yeah. Now I have no bangs.
That was how.
Man, it was such like not a dark time, but not an enlightened time when
No.
we were children. Like when as we were all at this age quickly respecting people and learning the rules of like hearing from different groups who really were in the shadows forever. It's like you really got to cut our generation some slack when they screw up pronouns or they don't get it all, because they don't realize, young kids don't realize how far we had to come.
Right.
Like,
Right.
honestly, like,
Yeah.
how like racist and misogynist just in our lifetime.
No,
things
somebody
were.
was pointing this out the other day, that there was a game when we were kids that was literally called Smear the Queer. And it wasn't gay bashing. You didn't go after gay people, but that was the name of the game.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and to be gay and to hear things like that just
Oof.
said matter-of-factly and flippantly,
By
like,
everybody.
Everybody. Yeah.
So insane what people used to
I
say
know.
and do, and not just like your dumb friends at the playground. Like, it was in movies, it was in songs, it was
Right.
Every song from the 80s was just about how hot women were. Right.
Right.
Like, she's got legs, and just, I mean, everything was just purely just man on, and it's kind of innocent in some regards, but in other times it has to give you a little bit of pause.
Right.
Yeah,
and the idea of gay people being evil elements in films.
Mhm.
I remember somebody wrote an article about like the history of femme fatales and murderers in films and how often they were lesbians. Like most of the time they were lesbians.
Really?
Yeah. Remember Basic Instinct? She ends up being with a woman at the end, and
Right.
she was only playing. Yeah, but
Interesting.
yeah, but you think of the music videos. Yeah, they were very Dire Straits. That
Uh-huh.
little faggot's got his own jet airplane.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, like,
yeah. It was just such a part, and you're just a kid in there. You're not aware of anything. You're just digesting all the cool
Right.
songs and the cool verbs and the movies and whatever. It was like, what I'm
I
trying to
think in
say
a
is
way-
we've come a long way.
well, I
as-
think we've come a long way, and I don't think it's just we've come a long way for somebody else's edification. I think that if I had grown up in a culture that was not homophobic,
Mhm.
I think I would be a much more evolved person myself, because I don't think I would have braced against trying to be manlier than I really was my whole life. I think I probably would have honored my creative side more.
Yeah.
I think I would have been more vulnerable, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think across the board, people benefit from this kind of awakening.
Yeah, but it was. I mean, look, when I was hosting the Marriage Ref, which was in 2010, and social media was just like starting to pop off, a lot of the comments were, "I think he's gay," and it was like, "Why?"
About you?
Yeah, about me. It was like, And I would like think about it and be like, I'm not. Well,
Yeah.
I didn't really care, but I was like, there was a little bit of me like, what part do they think is gay? And like in 2010, like why would that even be a subject or a thing?
Yeah.
But
Right.
you know, it is. You would have to. I don't think a kid even growing up today with how open things are compared to when we were growing up, I still don't think it's open to the point where they're going to be completely free.
Well, it's also geographic. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's places where it's not 2020 yet.
No,
You know, they're-
even in
they-
this
they've-
country.
Yeah, they hit 1950 and they went, yeah, let's stay here for a few
Yeah.
more decades.
We're good.
We're good with 1950.
So
But I see my kids' friends. You know, I see a lot of their friends are gay, and a lot of them had two dads or two moms,
Yeah.
and it was all very normalized. But but I don't think it's that way everywhere.
No. So when you grow up in this Wonder Bread culinary wasteland, now you're a guy living near the beach in California, and you've got kids who are probably know more about food than you did even
Oh,
now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, is it a different? Are holidays different with your family? Is it? Have you learned and evolved? And was your wife? Did she bring stuff to it? Is food is food a bigger part, or do you like because you didn't grow up with it? You just kind of go along for the ride.
I go along for the ride.
Yeah.
And she's definitely I think she's Upper West Side of Manhattan, and so very Jewish. Like even though she's half Jewish,
Yeah.
she culturally is very Jewish and going to Zabar's and getting good chicken and
Yeah.
you know like I think there's a respect and an emotional connection to food for Jewish people.
Yeah.
And so it's wasted on me. Like if it's anything fancy, like I like to take her to nice restaurants because she likes to go.
Yeah.
I can't stand nice restaurants. I'm just like, can we get the food and get out of here? But she enjoys like a tasting menu and like a place where they bring you like, you know, little plates.
Yep. Stretching it out.
Yeah. And I'm always like, wait a minute. If like I went to Jelena in Venice, which is like, it's all little plates.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, but the little plate's $17. Like if it's little, shouldn't the price be smaller since you're getting a lot of them?
Yeah.
Sir, we have a line out front. If you don't enjoy your food, you can go.
Take your Irish ass out of here.
No, but our Thanksgiving, we do Thanksgiving out here, and it's you know, some of our friends, our California friends.
Yeah.
So there's a gluten-free option for everything because a couple of the kids are gluten whatever.
Yeah. Intolerant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm dealing with a little of that. I'm dealing with a Californication in my own house where all my girls are vegetarians, and you know Cynthia has been forever, and then converted our children without my say so. And
Really?
well, yeah, she just let it be known, you know, how great animals are and connected the dots for them at a very young age. And I don't live that way at all. And I like to cook. I cook a lot. And so, you know, to just take that part off the menu. Like I'm not making it for it's if we're making spaghetti and meatballs, I'm making a couple meatballs and putting them to the side, making sure everything's separate for them.
Yeah.
And now they've just declared they're both not eating cheese either. So
Really?
So you had this vegetarian thing where, okay, but we can get away with nachos, or
Sure.
I could go make a lasagna with vegetables and all that cheese, and so now meat's gone, and then cheese is gone, and I'm just sitting there with a spatula and an apron on, like I gotta get some friends.
Yeah.
Like, and I think a big part of it is not in a bad way, but being in California and being more thoughtful about what you're eating and what's really healthy and what's really not healthy and ethical reasons for doing it. And I get it.
Is the cheese for ethical reasons or for health reasons?
That's more health. That's more health, but always nibbling at the edges of veganism. Always just right around that. In that, they make visits to that neighborhood every once in a while.
How's their weight? Are they able to keep weight on?
Oh, they're so fat. I mean, so sloppy. All of them.
But they're not like rail thin or anything.
No, they're in shape. They're in shape.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all look good. No, it's
Okay, so how do you do you consciously think about how to get protein into their diets?
Hey, not really. It's too
No.
hard. I mean, cheese was the big part of it.
Right.
And I'll, make stir fry with tofu and that kind of thing,
Mhm.
which is great. I love eating it too, but that's once in a while.
Yeah.
Then you're just faced with what? Veggie dogs, and that's all like processed stuff in it. And
Right.
then you've got, veggie burgers, and then there's like, other ways, like you have to really pack on a lot of green leafy vegetables and like be really conscious of that stuff. And they're not really fans of that either.
Yeah. Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you grow up in a culture that ate anything. We were just Italian garbage disposals.
Yeah.
It was just like, meat, whatever. And I literally, I'm like an Italian cook for one.
That's so hard.
Yeah. Because
But Italians, like I remember eating at my friend Frank Moretti's house for the first time, and they were, there was a antipasta, there was a salad,
right.
there was pizza, and I was like, I eat the pizza. I'm like, that was a great dinner. Thanks, Mrs. Moretti. And she's looking at me like I'm crazy. The shrimp scampi didn't come out yet.
Yeah.
The sausages didn't come out. It just kept coming.
The pasta, yeah.
Yeah.
They
Was
would-
it like that when you were growing up? Like
Yeah.
multiple courses?
Yep. They would just sit at the table for hours
Yeah.
and just keep bringing it out. And it was like the pasta would definitely be the encore. And then it was like, no, we didn't. Then you get to the meats. Then we go into the seafood and the meats and all the rest of it. And so I walk into an Italian deli where it's just hanging meats and cheeses and it just floods. I cannot stop. Like,
Yeah.
it's impossible for me to stop eating all of it. And I buy it. I buy all of it and I bring it back home and I'm like, and they're like, we don't even want an anchovy in that sauce.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. It's so funny. Like if you have that stuff in whatever it is you were growing up with, that's kind of where it just gets established.
Right.
It's just, that's it. Like you are never going to turn into a guy that's like, let me sit in this restaurant and learn what wines go with this food and all the rest of that stuff. It's just, it's like learning a language as a kid.
Well, it's that, and even more so, I think it's an emotional connection. I think for Italians, there's such a they're always trying to feed you. It's their way of showing generosity, and when you share a meal, it's like like it's why we love watching Italians in movies have meals together.
Yeah, it's really true. Yeah, I mean the Goodfellas scene when he's slicing the garlic with the razor blade. Yeah, it's just like you could watch just that scene. Yeah, in a loop for 2 hours.
or in The Godfather when they're all holed up after the son gets killed.
Yeah.
And they're hidden out and they're making he's making sausage and peppers and it didn't matter what they had to use. Like it was like I had never seen men cook. Like where I grew up, men didn't go near the kitchen.
Right.
It was seen as effeminate.
Yeah.
Did your father cook?
No. He didn't cook at all. I only know of a couple meals that he's made. He never made, I don't think a single meal where he was like, here, family, I made dinner tonight. Right. It'd be something like he'd go grill something or something, but to add on to all the other stuff my mother was doing.
Right. Are both sides Italian?
Both sides, yeah. And my one grandfather was German.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I keep having fantasies of going to Germany. I think since the pandemic, because they're like one of the places that has it together.
Right.
I'm fantasizing about those kind of places. Norway, going to Copenhagen, the Netherlands, Germany, places that have their act together.
Yeah.
You know, there's something so clean about it.
I know.
God.
Yeah, it just feels like there has to be this magic place where people will hug again and shake hands again. And we're like, when you see somebody, you don't have all these counter instincts flood you of what not to do.
Yeah.
Like
I know, it's exhausting. I shook someone's hand. I think I might have told you this. I shook someone's hand, my brother-in-law's hand. When we were leaving, we dropped my daughter off at school and we were coming back west. And I said goodbye to him. And he put his hand out and I was like, and did it. It was like sleeping with someone without a condom when you're dating. I was like, this is the new making out.
Yeah, right. We're edgy.
A handshake.
Yeah.
I know.
Right.
It's exhausting. Are you going?
I know, and I feel bad for like my mom because my mom lives alone, and she's a hugger. She has friends that she hugs, and she needs that. There's all these studies about how you need physical contact, you need hugging, and she doesn't get any of that, and she can't come out and visit us so she can get it. So yeah, it's sad.
I know, it's hard. It's really hard. It goes against our instincts so much. I was trying to articulate that on stage, that it's like I've been holed up with my wife, who I've been with for over 20 years and love more than anybody, but I found like I need strangers almost as much. Like I need to just smile and make people laugh at the grocery store and hug somebody like a business person that you're doing a thing with. Like I need all those people just as much.
Yeah.
We're pretty weird organism.
No, that night when you did that show that you asked me to come do, the joy of performing was almost as good as the joy of seeing the comedians backstage.
Yeah.
And, and just being able to connect to people that you're used to seeing at, like when we go out at night, it's like, you've done your podcast or whatever all day, you have dinner with your family, and it's like, okay, now I'm going to the store or I'm going to wherever and I'm going to see comedians. Yes. And like you just come alive. And that's how I felt. I was like, saw the Sklar brothers and saw you and who else was there? Laurie Kilmartin. Yeah. And each interaction felt like, oh, I forgot how important this was to me.
I know. Everybody was lingering in the parking lot after.
Yeah.
People didn't want to leave. They were just
right.
I know, it's so important. I'm getting like I drove the same route to go pick up my daughter as I would take to the Comedy Store. And I haven't gone to the Comedy Store since early March. And I would bust out, leave the house at 9, a little before, and go up, do this route, go to the Comedy Store, stand in front of people, do the thing, hang out with you after for like another half hour, and then go home. It's just only a short amount of time, but so alive and public. And I'm driving the same route to pick my daughter up at the same time, like 9 o'clock. And I was like, whew, out late tonight. I got to get back.
Yeah.
I can't believe she's staying out this late. 9 o'clock.
Right.
It's like changing us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't like it. It's like I'm going to be like in a cardigan sweater, like turning the lights out at 8.
Well, because the thing is we are that guy. You and I are middle-aged, straight white guys with kids.
Yeah.
And the only thing that made us not boring was that we went out at night and told jokes to people in nightclubs that were drinking and we were cursing and saying crazy shit. And you take that out, we're just like every other schmo in the Midwest right now.
It's true. It really is true. It's not good. That's why I'm getting that's why I'm getting on a plane tomorrow.
Where are you going?
I'm going to the Mohegan Sun
in Connecticut?
Uh-huh.
Are you changing flights to Springfield and having the car drive you?
No, I'm going direct to Newark because I'm going to go see my eye doctor in New York, and then I'm going to go do the show, and then I'm going to just drive back 2 hours and fly direct from Newark back.
That's good. So you're going to rent a car when you get to Newark?
Yeah. I've done like
You go.
I've done like 3 or 4. This will be my
Really?
3rd. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
How many nights are you doing?
2.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, talk about feeling great.
It feels good, huh?
Oh,
Yeah.
just being alone.
Yeah.
Just you, your bag, your backpack, walking onto that plane.
Yep.
5 hours by yourself to write or do whatever. Like
Mhm.
just that alone head,
Yep.
which everyone's craving. My daughter's craving and my wife is, my wife just said she was going out the other day and I almost asked her where she was going and purposely didn't because she didn't want to say. She didn't want to be accountable. She didn't want to say make plans for coming. She had to just go be a person,
Right. Right.
and we all need
Yeah.
that. And we need it more than other people.
Yeah, we're so used to concentrates where you get concentrated feedback on stage, we get concentrated alone time.
Yeah.
And travel. Like I drive past LAX and I swear to God, there's like a part of me that's like a little kid at a candy store, like, oh my God, bumped up to business class and anything's possible in that wonderful building.
It's really true.
Yeah.
Oh, and
And it's not like I go on the road and drink or fuck around.
Mm-mm. Just lay on that bed by yourself like spread
Yeah.
eagle.
Right.
Just not moving for a minute.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's really a special thing that I'm definitely missing. Is your struggle? Do you have a struggle after the show, whether you eat or not?
No.
You just don't eat.
I don't eat after the show. Okay, food doesn't mean anything to me.
What a gift.
It really doesn't.
What a gift.
Yeah. I mean, I know. I see Jeff Ross is the same way. Jeff Ross, when he gets off stage, needs to find a great place to eat. Not just a place,
Yeah.
but it's got to be a great place.
Yeah. Yeah. And my thing when I get off is trying not to go to a place.
Oh,
As soon as I'm off stage, then the devil is now wrestling with me and saying,
Right.
I know it's midnight, but let's go eat a ton of whatever. And my heart and my love handles are like, we're not doing it. And then that battle goes on until someone wins.
yeah. And does that depend on who you're traveling with? Like, do you bring people on the road with you that'll want to hang out after the show?
Yeah. It depends. Yeah, like if I bring like a couple people that I work with and we want to hang with, then I'll do it. I just try not to do it all the time.
Yeah.
Because then it's also, it's an energy thing. You go out and do these shows and it's all about the shows and the show being great. And then it's like, if I stay up and just eat a big meal and roll in at 2, then my sleep's messed up then the whole thing leads up to not a great show at 7 the next day.
Yeah. Right.
Right? You gotta conserve your energy at this point.
It's hard to explain that to people when they know that you're only working for an hour a night.
Yeah.
That it really does take a lot of manipulating like if I exercise.
Yeah.
Got to do it at the right time. It can either help the show or it can hurt the show.
That's right.
How hard do I exercise? How much carbs am I eating before the show?
Yeah.
How much coffee? Like I have to nail my caffeine intake.
I know. Oh, I love caffeine. I was listening to David Lynch on YouTube yesterday. He was talking all about Transcendental Meditation and stuff.
Oh.
And then he said something like, you do this and you go and you transcend and you meditate and that and drink coffee. And my ears perked up. I was like, all I want is someone to give me more permission to drink more coffee.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So TM and coffee go well together.
Yeah, apparently.
Because when I took the TM class in LA.
Oh, good.
And that was the thing that said is there's like a 4-day training course.
Yeah. With Goodman?
Oh, is that who?
Goodman? Santa Monica?
No, it was the one in Beverly Hills.
Uh-huh.
Santa Monica's great though.
Yeah.
And I remember them saying, don't drink coffee before you meditate.
Yeah.
And I've always stuck to that. Like I always get up and I immediately meditate and then I have my coffee.
Right.
Yeah.
I play around with it. Sometimes I'll do coffee and then do it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is better, I think. I go deeper if I don't have it.
Yeah.
If you
right.
Splash some water, maybe a shower, and then do it.
Yeah.
That's the perfect time.
Yeah, I find it like if I don't get it done first thing in the morning and then I have my coffee, then I just wait. And like I'll do it now, like after this podcast, I'll wait till late afternoon.
Yeah.
And that gets me from the transition from like hitting the wall after working all day
Yeah.
and actually stealing an extra couple hours that I can be productive.
It's the best.
Yeah.
It's the best. It's being able to do it twice a day is the sweet spot.
You feel a big difference when you do it twice?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The interesting thing, how long have you been doing it?
Probably like 6 years.
Yeah, that's about me. And it is pretty profound how much things change in your life. The amount of patience that you have, the amount of just creative clarity, all that stuff, right? I mean, it's really a game changer.
Yeah.
The thing about Lynch, which I'm wrestling with, and I know we're going to wrap up in a minute, but he talks all about going to transcending and going to the unified field, like proven in physics, of another plane of existence. And that when you dip into that and you transcend, you find bliss. And he's always talking about finding this bliss, this pure joy. And I know what he means when you're out of it, that you are happier. Your life is less stressful. You have a greater appreciation. You are happier, essentially, throughout your life from doing this practice all the time. You don't even know how it happens. It just happens. But the way he talks is like you dip into this transcendent plane and you experiencing bliss. And I don't really have that. You know what I mean? Is at least is not how I'm translating what bliss, the definition of bliss is. I've never come out of it like, wow.
I don't know that. I mean, it was always explained to me that the bliss is really just literally your head goes under for a few seconds.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for 8 of the 20 minutes you're meditating, you're in bliss. It's literally like physiologically, your brainwaves only change for a few seconds. And that's what they consider the bliss, and that you can actually pull from that an energy that stays with you the rest of the day. Even if you only hit that period 2 or 3 times during your meditation, you know, a 3 or 5 second little
interesting
other energy level. Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes more sense.
You know that feeling where your eyes kind of roll back and time, you don't know how much time just went by?
Yeah.
And you suddenly go like, oh, that's why I meditate. That was like a little orgasm. That was it. That was deep.
Deep. And do you have the thing where whatever happens, whether you're not going deep, whatever happens, your eyes seem to pop open at 20 minutes? Pretty consistently? No?
No, I have a timer on.
Oh, you
do? You
do?
Use a timer? I know you're not supposed to.
Yeah,
the purists say don't use a timer.
Yeah, I was taught not to have a timer.
Yeah, I have such a bad sense of time that if I don't have a timer on, I'll go for 8 minutes or I'll go for 30. I don't know.
That's interesting because I do have the advantage of always being in tune with time. Like from the time I was a kid, like I knew what time it was. I knew when I had to be home. I was always in tune to time. So I know that's an advantage, but it's amazing to me that I could be in a completely another state of mind or place, not even be aware. I might even have dozed off, and my eyes pop open and look at the phone, and it's 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love when you talk to when I talk to the people at the TM place, I'm like, but the other day I meditated and I fell asleep, and they're always like, well, you must have been tired. Like there's no
the best.
Well, what you need to do is more. It's like it's pretty straightforward. Like, but I was thinking about. I was thinking a lot about my daughter's not doing well at school. Well, then I guess you need to think about your daughter's not doing well at school.
It's the best.
I guess there's some energy there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no mistake. You can't make a mistake, and you don't have to drag yourself and beat yourself up and refocus. Yeah.
Right.
That acceptance is so freeing.
And I forgot that because I'd never gone back. You know, like when you do the TM, what do they call it? The Institute?
Yeah.
TM Institute?
Yeah.
Once you go, It's more expensive than it should be, but I guess it's a sliding scale. But,
Yeah.
you pay a lot of money, but then they say to you, you can come unlimited for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Knowing that 95% of people are never going to come back.
Right.
So then finally, after like 6 years or whatever, about a month ago, I called up, and with the pandemic, I was having trouble, staying settled.
Yeah.
And so I got on a Zoom call with this guy and this other woman,
Uh-huh.
and it reminded me that that the thoughts are to be observed, not pushed away.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd kind of over the years had kind of gotten so focused on getting into my mantra that I forgot that, like, oh no, like he said, it's like a washing machine, and the thoughts are in there, and they need to be,
Yeah.
shaken up a little bit and cleaned out.
Yeah. Ringing out your nervous system.
Yeah, right.
I went back once. I made an appointment, went in, sat with him, just kind of talked about the process and what I'm doing and stuff like that. And it reset.
Yeah,
It resets stuff. It's good to talk about it because it is such a profound, strange thing that you can't. It's like being a comedian. The only other people who do it understand what the hell you're talking about.
right, right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's something that it's so individual. And then they talk about going to retreats, and I always like, God, who would do that? But now I'm at the point where I think I'd like to do a yoga retreat at some point. Go for 3 or 4 days and just do some workshops and some yoga and some hikes and whatever.
When Lynch was talking on this video, he was talking about how things change, the group mentality, that if everybody were to meditate, what it would do to the world, because if there's more people like you walking around who are a little more loving and less stressed and whatever, like that has a profound effect on the world. And he was saying, like, that's why group meditation is that, like, you can feel it. You're dealing with energy. We're all tapping into the same energy. He said, we all carry so much energy with us. Like if you walk into a room where there's been an argument, it could all be over. And you walk in, you feel it.
Right.
It just happened here, kind of a thing.
Right.
He said the
Right.
same way on the other end.
Yeah.
That made me think, like, yeah, maybe going and sitting with other people maybe it'd be a trip. I don't know. Maybe it'd be.
Well, I remember first taking the course and sitting there with 4 or 5 other people. I never went as deep as those sessions when I first started, where there was other people sitting there meditating with me.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, I know the results because I know his whole thing is about bringing TM into public schools.
Yeah.
And they do it. They do mindfulness at my kids' school. It's a public school, but there's some program that started bringing it in.
Oh, wow.
And they say that the statistics on how kids do on testing every analytic of progress for students changes when they start meditating in school.
It's amazing. Like you almost regret. It's almost like starting comedy later than you wanted to. It's like, if I had started meditating when I was 17,
right?
Oh man, all those fraught times, running out of energy, being mentally fried.
Yeah,
this fixes all that.
Right.
It's so
obsessing.
Oh, I never would have gotten that bad tattoo when I was 19 if I. Well, listen. When I come back after I wear my mask in quarantine, when I come home, I will bake you bread and I will drive it to your house as a thank you for doing this.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really look forward to it.
All right. Olives.
Yeah. Olives. That would be great.
All right.
Olive sourdough.
Oh, it's olives, herbs de Provence, lemon zest, walnuts if you want.
Sure. Walnuts.
All right. We'll throw it all in.
Yeah. All right.
You're the best, Greg.
All right, man. Have a good trip.
Thanks, man. I'll talk to you
Stay
soon.
safe. Okay. See ya.